Hi, welcome to SBR Sports Picks. My name is Peter Loshak. It's the Friday of Week 6 in the NFL, and this is the Into the Weekend with BetDSI show for NFL Week 6. Of course, we talk with Brent, the headlines manager at DSI Sportsbook, every week about the notable action that he's taken in NFL and college football, and we do have a new promo code that you can use for this show. Brand new accounts can use the promo code WEEKEND25, and you'll get a $25 free play for new accounts at BetDSI. All right, Brent, NFL Week 6, the Sharps, not bad. The Sharps 4-1 last week in the NFL, bringing them to 18-11. That's over 60% on the year in the NFL for the Sharps. Well, not too bad. Not too shabby, Sharps, right?
Wait a second. 62% is not too shabby, Peter?
It's better. It's actually less shabby than not too shabby. It's extremely not shabby. Wow. Yeah, the Sharps are doing great in the NFL, 4-1 last week. Great call on the Jets, although that game could have gone either way. The Browns could have won that one, but some great calls. Indianapolis over, the Giants over. We'll see what the Sharps are like in this week in the NFL. Let's start with the Pats-Jets game. This is always an interesting game, right? Because the Jets tend to play the Pats close when they're at home. I think they've covered 4 home games in a row. Each is a big underdog, no matter how good the Pats are, no matter how bad the Jets are. It just seems that the games when the Jets are at home tend to be closer than expected. As we know, the Pats, take a huge public action week in and week out, and coming off a win, I'm assuming that's the case this week. And also almost no line movement on this one. It's been solidly 9.5 almost since opening. So it's an interesting handicapping situation. We know the public's on the Pats again, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought you were going to say this is such an interesting game because it's basically for the division lead. That is the fact that the Jets are 3-2 somehow, and the New England is 3-2 as well. And you might say somehow New England's 3-2 in that somehow they've lost 2 games, and somehow the Jets have managed to put together a 3-game winning streak. I mean, it's quite impressive for New York for sure. And just kind of like a side note is the regular season wins on the Jets. I mean, that was by far our biggest decision that we've got, pending right now. And that's obviously everyone's betting the heck out of the under. Now, that total regular season wins for them was under 4.5. And it was like big juice on the under 4.5. Like I'm talking like minus 180, minus 190. It was big juice. We did move the number down to 4, and there was still juice towards the under. So, the fact that they've won 3 games in their first 5 is, at least for us, is kind of comforting. You figure they'll probably get at least one more to push that forward. And, getting on 5 would be, in terms of the futures market, it's quite a big decision for us. So, yeah, I mean, the Jets, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to expect them to win this weekend, but if they do, we'd greatly appreciate it. It's interesting you mentioned this game because, we generally, seem to be hit and miss in terms of the games that you pick to talk about and the ones that I have sharp action on. But we did get sharp action on this game. This line had got betting up. We actually opened at 9.5 to start with. It did get bet up to 10, and we actually got a sharp bet, not a pseudo sharp bet. We got a sharp bet on the Jets. That guy did buy a half a point, so it was the Jets plus 10.5, minus 115 on the buy. And again, if you look at the number right now, it's pretty much 9 right across the board. And my wager count, I mean, I don't even need to tell you what my wager count is. It's 5-1 favoring the Patriots. So no surprise there at all. But I'm from where I'm sitting, I'm real happy about the fact that I got sharp money on the Jets this early. So that makes us feel a little bit better. But yeah, my wager count again, no surprise, favoring New England. Like I said, it's almost like 5-1 favoring them. This total, it hasn't moved much at all. I mean, we're open up at 47. We're sitting at 47.5 right now. My wager count is almost dead even on that. My money's almost dead even on that as well. Slightly more money on the over, be the way involved in this total. But yeah, I definitely have sharp action on the Jets at home. And again, like I said, the important thing is they bought the half point to the 10.5. Now, if Sharps do what they do. Obviously, we don't want this number to be landing 10. That's for sure. After Sharps typically bet a little bit more in terms of a dollar amount than the public does. So getting public money at 9 on the Patriots and the sharp guy sitting at plus 10.5, landing 10 would not be a good result for us. But let's go for the Jets outright, Peter.
Okay, Jets plus 10.5, minus 115. Did take a sharp bet, list guy, and that makes sense to me. Again, the Jets just seem to play the Pats a lot closer at home than expected in recent years. And then let's talk about the Steelers-Chiefs game, right? KC, another cover. They're now 5-0 ATS overall. The Steelers got blown out by the Jags last week, looking pretty bad in that game. So we know, that the public is very swayed by recent results in the NFL. So I'm guessing that finally the public is starting to pound the hell out of the Chiefs. They're just a 4-point favorite here, but not much movement on this line either. It stayed on 4 pretty much since it opened earlier this week, from what I can see. What can you tell us about Steelers and Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean the Chiefs have been getting quite a bit of public support. I mean, even go back to the start, the end of last season, the public was really starting to key on the Chiefs as being a solid team all around. I think they're pretty bang on. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, it seems, but their offense has really opened up with the running game. They've always had running backs who catch the ball well. The quarterback's playing well. He's throwing deeper and stuff like that. And I mean, you got the other side of the coin. You got Roethlisberger's publicly questioning whether he's got it anymore. So that's never good for business, as you will. Looking at this line movement, as you mentioned, it hasn't really moved a whole lot, but I do have sharp action involved in this game. And again, it's kind of rare that you get to you pick games that where actually do have sharp action involved. But this game, I do have money involved. And again, this number has basically been ping ponging back and forth between 4 and 4.5. And at 4.5 is where I did get sharp money on Pittsburgh. So Pittsburgh plus the 4.5 is where that sharp money came. Looking at my wager count, it is 3-1 favoring Kansas City. So I've got a lot more public money on Kansas City. So that kind of is how and why my decision kind of starts drifting towards Kansas City in terms of my money. And you'll see the movement to 4.5. And again, if you get the sharp money back at the plus 4.5, there you go. You go back. So I mean, I'm looking right now. I'm thinking this number could work for us just sitting at -4, -115 with Kansas City, or 4.5 flat. I mean, we'd be comfortable, either way. I do think I'll continue to get Kansas City money at the 4 or 4.5. And again, you've got a much more limited number of guys who are sharp guys who are going to take the plus 4.5 with Pittsburgh than there are Kansas City Chief fans who are the public who are going to lay that number. So I expect my wager count probably to be closer to 4 or 5-1 by kickoff. I think Kansas City is going to continue to get the money. So if it goes back up to 4.5, I'm not going to be worried thinking the sharps are betting this 4.5 all over the board. I'm going to assume that it's happening at other stores is what happens here, and that's the public just betting Kansas City. This is one of those games, though. I also have action on the total from sharp players, and again, it's not a good spot for me because I did take sharp money on the over 46.5. Now we're sitting at 47 right now. There's 47.5. We did go up to and came back down, but I've got a wager count of 2-1 on the over, which is kind of a decent for this, this early in the week with these games being on Sunday. That's a decent count. My money's almost dead even again because it was the sharp action that I took on the under, but over 46.5 was sharp. And again, you never want to have public money and sharp money on the over, but that's the situation with this game right here. And again, you never know what's going to happen. In Kansas City's offense definitely looks better. Pittsburgh, with Roethlisberger, he hasn't been as good on the road if you look at his history, but still, I mean, you just kind of buckle in and follow the sharps, and they are on the dog Pittsburgh plus the 4.5 and the over 46.5.
All right. Interesting. I'm kind of surprised to hear that sharp action came in on Pittsburgh at 4.5. If there was sharp action on Pittsburgh, I would have thought this would get to at least a 3.5 or so. But interesting. Public on KC, sharp action on the over and on and the Steelers. And then let's talk about the game involving the anti-Chiefs, which is the Cardinals, the Bucs and the Cardinals. Arizona just looking bad, coming off another game where they look bad. They're now 0-5 ATS overall. Some people have posited that this looks like a quote-unquote suspicious line. The fact that the Bucs are such a small road favorite here that it might be trappy, indicating that the Cardinals are finally going to be the right side this week. Certainly an interesting handicapping situation. Cardinals 0-5 ATS and not looking good. A very small home dog to the Bucs. What can you tell us about this one, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of, I don't know if it's like a trappy situation, as you mentioned. It's just one of those spots where you kind of like, I mean, home field obviously is worth a whole lot, and I mean, but Arizona just hasn't looked very good. They signed Adrian Peterson, they picked up Adrian Peterson, Tampa Bay. I mean, even like their last game, you just kind of expected more from the Bucs. I think last week, I mean, they didn't embarrass themselves at home to the Patriots, but you just thought that was one of those spots where they'd be able to take advantage of the Patriots defense, and they definitely did not do that. And it's kind of too, you're just kind of waiting for Tampa Bay to take the next step. So I mean, I think just the fact that they're on the road and a favorite as they are, I mean, that's kind of substantial in itself. I don't have sharp action involved in this game, but I do have a public wager count of almost like 3-1 favoring Tampa Bay, which probably is no surprise. The public is bucking Tampa Bay, and basically looking at how Arizona's looked so far this year at 2-3, just haven't looked very good at all. And again, I mentioned Arizona's made some changes in their backfield. I mean, they got rid of Chris Johnson and they brought in Adrian Peterson, but I mean, I don't think he's going to replace their starting running back at the start of the year. Johnson, he was obviously a stud. So I mean, it looks like your Carson Palmer too. You're kind of sitting back trying to figure out, does he have it anymore? We talked about Roethlisberger in the previous game, but I mean, does Palmer have it? Who knows? Like I said, I do have nothing but public money involved on this one so far. We're sitting at a total of 45.5, and just public money drove this number up. From I opened at 45, I'm at 45.5 right now, so I can see this one maybe going to 46 is two. That wouldn't surprise me, just because public money is going to go that way. If it dropped down, it would be sharp money that drove it the other way. But yeah, my wager count on the side 3-1 favoring Tampa Bay, and that's basically why we are right now from the open number. We opened one myself, so we opened one. We've gone to 1 to 1.5. I think some other places open like pick minus 20 or whatever. But I mean, market wide, there's a slight variance out there between the -1 and 1.5. But just right now, so far, public money on Tampa Bay.
All right, that's pretty much what I was expecting, and I do think it's kind of telling that there's been no sharp action as yet biting on Arizona at that line, according to Brent from Brent from BetDSI. All right, Brent, let's get to the rest of the card from the NFL Week 6 slate of games. What can you tell us? Two games still don't have lines: Chargers in Oakland, Indianapolis, Tennessee, and of course, once again, for anyone who wants to open an account at BetDSI and get an additional $25 free play, use the promo code Weekend25 for new accounts, and you'll get a $25 free play. Brent, what can you tell us about notable action from NFL Week 6?
Well, you kind of stole some of my thunder, Peter, in terms of covering the Pats Jets game and talking about the Pittsburgh Kansas City games. Those are three of the sharp plays we had so far were involved in those games. I do have sharp action, which surprised me that sharps came in on this game, and that's the top game, Cleveland at Houston. You see the line hasn't moved much at all in terms of the side. I mean, it's sitting Houston that's 9.5 right now, but the total has moved quite a bit. I opened at 44. I took sharp action at 44.5 on the over, and it got all the way up to 47 as of yesterday. It's come back down just to tick a half point down to 46.5. But it was sharp money that came in on the over in this game. I've got a wager count almost 2-1 favoring the over, which is not a huge count. Generally, when the public jumps all over a total, it's usually like a 5-1. Like just looking at Detroit, New Orleans, for example, my wager count there on the over is like 5-1. That's kind of typical. Green Bay, Minnesota is not too bad, but it's about 3-1. So you're typically going to bet the over, but my wager count is only about 2-1. So I guess even the public is not so sold on either of these teams being able to put up a lot of points. But I mean, Cleveland's making a change at quarterback, which probably been good for them. Hogan actually, when he's been in there, it's kind of an interesting spot, and he's actually looked pretty good. I mean, he was in there last year as well, and he did quite well. And he's in there again, getting the start for Cleveland. So I mean, perhaps there's some hope in terms of them being able to turn around their offense. But yeah, like I said, the only sharp money I have on this one is on the over 44.5. Now again, Houston's be able to put up a lot of points. They've got injuries on the defense. So I mean, the more you look at stuff like this, the more you might say, this kind of does make sense. I don't really go too deep in that, just because I got the sharps on one side. They're telling me which way is the way to be in terms of holding a position. So I'm just rolling with that. The other one I want to talk about, focus on one of the teams coming off a bye. We talked about this near the end of last season. Just something to look out for. This is the first week that I've got teams coming back off the bye. This week, there's some heavy chalk on the board. If you look across, Denver's one of those teams coming off the bye. They're an 11.5 point favorite. New Orleans is coming off the bye. Washington is coming off the bye. Washington's like a 10.5, 11 point favorite as well. So some big chalk there. But this one is 2, and that's Atlanta. Atlanta's where the sharps came in, -11. So I've got sharp action. Atlanta, who's coming off the bye, and they're at home to that team who has not looked very good at all, the Miami Dolphins. So I get no surprise, I guess, with them, the public and sharps on the same side of this one. You definitely would have expected the public going with the Atlanta, but I've got sharp money there as well. So I'm sitting at -13, and the sharps came in at -11. My wager count here is 2-1 favoring Atlanta as well. The total, again, I've got sharp action on the total on this game as well, and that was under 47.5. Now, this is down to 46.5, and 46 pretty much market wide. I'm using 46 myself. There is some 46.5 out there, but Atlanta -11 and the under 47.5 in that same game are the sharp plays. That's it, Peter. I mean, we got like I said, we covered the Pittsburgh +4.5 and the over 46.5 in that same game. We covered the Jets plus 10.5, whether they bought the half a point. And these 3 plays here, Cleveland, Houston over 44.5, Atlanta minus 11, and the Atlanta Miami game under 46.5. And again, I just want your guys to maybe something we should document ourselves is how teams do against the spread coming off the bye. Denver, Atlanta, New Orleans, and Washington this week.
Absolutely, Brent. Very interesting stuff, especially the notable sharp action on the Pittsburgh KC game. We'll see where those lines wind up by kickoff. If more sharp action comes in on Pittsburgh, I think we'll see that one dip to 3.5. Right, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen so far though is just it really only takes one sharp for you to get a good idea where where your number should be, and there are certainly fewer sharps than there are public guys who are going to bet the heck out of the other side. So I could see this game going to 4.5 and back down to 4. I could see it bouncing back and forth. I don't think it's going to go down to 3.5, and I just get that feeling that the public's going to be so heavily involved in Kansas City we won't need to.
All right, Brent again comes from BetDSI Sportsbook. Thanks so much, Brent. We'll talk to you next week for NFL Week 7.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to our channel. Now, we've put a lot of work into producing all these free videos, so please help us out and keep all our content free for you forever by simply liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Now, not to mention, a visit to our industry-leading website will warm the hearts of all our SBR employees, especially myself. Now, the links are over there to the left, so do check those out. Thanks for watching.